Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Atkins? Here. Conant? Here. Crawford? Here. Darcy?
Here.
Graff?
Here.
Hall?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Holford?
Here.
Hovey? Emmy?
Here.
Josting?
Here.
Longfellow?
Here.
Middle?
Here.
Minton?
Here.
Newhouser?
Here.
Frail? Rich Simpson?
Here.
Squartino?
Here.
Sin?
Here.
Sundell? Wolf?
Here.
Chairman Zimmerman?
We have a quorum. We'll do business. If we could rise for the invocation and pledge.
Heavenly Father, thank you for being a gracious and wonderful God. Thank you for the privilege of living in a free country where we can gather and debate these issues in a manner that honors you. I pray that for our agenda tonight, that you watch over us and the things that we say. Thank you for our employees who've come out this evening and just what a wonderful job they do. Thank you for the citizens of our county and just their interest, and we want to keep their interests in mind. I lift up our soldiers overseas, protect them and bring them home safely. We know that you watch over all of us. Thank you for being a great God and a sovereign God, and we take hope in that, and we pray all these things in your name. Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to welcome our newest member, Tammy Rich Stimson. So if you haven't had the opportunity, we put her in the front row so we could keep an eye on her. So anyway, so welcome, Tammy. We're excited to have you on board. And we had Duke Meisinger here too, a previous board member, but he had to leave. We have a presentation from Chris Setti, who's the director of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council. Chris, if you just want to introduce yourself, I know you've been here several times.
I have. Thank you, Chairman Zimmerman. Thank you very much to the Tazewell County Board for giving me this brief opportunity. I've got 10 minutes, and they've got some sort of cattle prod behind me to make sure I stay to 10 minutes. My name is Chris Setti. I'm the CEO of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council. And excuse me. There we go. So I always start these meetings with when I make these presentations with our mission statement, because I think that's super important. Not so much because it's a mission statement. In every nonprofit organization, a lot of corporations have a mission statement. But I always like to point out kind of the section in the center that is offset by the commas, is that the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, in collaboration with our local development professionals, drives economic growth in the Greater Peoria area through talent attraction and business development. And it's that in collaboration with our local development partners. This is a team sport, economic development, and it requires county personnel, and it requires city personnel, it requires our bankers, our educational professionals, and our corporations. And so really that in collaboration with our local economic development or development is the most important part of our mission, because without it, we can't do what we do, which is leverage all the great resources in Tazewell County and the region to make us all better. So the other thing is I like to share with you some data as to how things are going. And on the jobs front, the data is actually pretty good. This shows kind of the 5-year look from 2000, I guess it's 4 years, from 2015 through currently 2019, Q3. This actually goes through July. That's the most recent economic data, is July of 2019. And what it's showing here is the number of employed persons. So this is from kind of really the low point, which was January of 2018. So in the last, I guess it's now 19 months, we've seen an increase of 4,278 employed persons in Tazewell County. Employed persons doesn't necessarily mean they're working in Tazewell County. It means they live in Tazewell County. Many of them likely do work in Tazewell, but they may work in Peoria County. They might work in McLean County. But that's the way the Bureau of Labor Statistics measures it, is where a person lives. And so I think that's obviously great. We've also seen increases in labor force, which is also very important. But hopefully this is being reflected in your communities as you talk to people, that we know that there's good hiring going on. We know that there are lots of open jobs, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other statistic always is the unemployment rate. This one's maybe a little harder to see. Tazewell County is the green line. What is interesting to me about this is that for the first time really in a long time, what we're seeing, and if I were to show you the regional number, which was the 5 counties that we cover all together, it would look about the same, is that the Tazewell County unemployment number matches the state and the nation. And usually, historically, as you can kind of see, we're usually above the nation and the rest of the state. So it's nice to see that we are not we don't have a big difference in our unemployment rate. There are always challenges in low unemployment rates because it makes it more difficult sometimes for employers to find good employees. And so that's why it's important that we continue to do the work that's being done in your community along with other communities of improving the workforce so that we're getting more people into that workforce. One of the problems, and I've mentioned this before, with the unemployment rate as a statistic is that it only measures the number of people who are what's called engaged in the workforce. That's either working or seeking work. So it does not measure people who maybe we would think should be working but aren't. And that number is really difficult. The census, U.S. Census used to track that number, and they haven't updated it since 2017, so it makes it kind of hard for us to figure out what we call our labor force participation rate. But we know, we at least know anecdotally, that there are lots of people in our communities who have the ability to work and should be working, even they're not retired or they're not somehow infirmed or in school or in the military or some other reason. And those are the folks that we really need to work on, and that's what's going to help our employers. I want to just highlight a couple of the recent initiatives and successes that GPDC has been involved in. Again, it's always about in collaboration with other partners. Probably the most exciting development we've seen in the last, since the last time I was here, I think it was March, we worked with Illinois Central College to obtain a $3 million federal grant from the Economic Development Administration to create what's called the Workforce Sustainability Center. Again, along the lines of we need to be continually working on improving our workforce. Illinois Central College is doing an amazing job. I actually think they're investing a lot more in Pekin lately too, in their South Campus. But this is for the construction of a $10 million building on their East Peoria campus that will house 13 different trades that are vocations that they'll be training for. That's everything from their CDL program and machine program to, ironically enough, because you have it on your agenda tonight, solar panel installation, which is a real economic opportunity for this region. The Future Energy's Job Act, which was passed, I believe, in 2017 or 2018, created a lot of momentum behind the solar panel industry and the installation. So I think you have something on your agenda tonight about an opportunity in Pekin, and that is economic development as well. And those are jobs that are readily available in our community and are being trained at ICC. We just recently had the folks from what's called Business France North America. This is the French consulate in Chicago that represents French businesses. This group that came is particularly interested in transportation, and they're very interested in autonomous mobility, in autonomous vehicles. So we shared with them information about Tazewell County's own autonomous stuff and try to put them in touch because they have French companies that are looking for potentially U.S. locations to demonstrate their vehicles and even manufacture their vehicles. So we do what's called a familiarization tour. They came down for the day. We kind of shared a little bit about our community, drove them around a little bit, introduced them to some people. And that's one of the things that, that we're able to do. The last thing on our rural economic development, and many of you cover rural areas of Tazewell County, we continue to look at industrial hemp as a new industry. Actually, this year, six farmers in Tazewell County have applied for licenses to grow industrial hemp. This is not marijuana. This is not anything to do with that. This is the same plant without the properties that make it marijuana, but it has some really tremendous properties that have all sorts of industrial uses. We actually just today we hosted a company, a startup company from Canada, who is looking at how to make what would be ordinarily concrete bricks for building out of hemp. It's a mixture of hemp and lime, and it has all the same properties as cement, but a lot of other qualities that cement doesn't have when it comes to insulation and mildew resistance and other things. That's the kind of some of the exciting stuff that we're trying to work as a completely new industry, basically a new industry for America, as hemp hasn't been legal to be grown since the 30s or the 40s. There's an opportunity there too, because this one farmer was telling us that all he had was like 1940s equipment to actually harvest the hemp. He said, so it was like we were farming in the past all of a sudden again. So there's opportunities there. And then I just thought, we did a little bit of work on organic farming, and that Tazewell County is the #2 county in all of Illinois for the number of certified organic farms. Ironically, #1 is Woodford County. So we, in our economic development district, we have the top 2 numbers of counties with the number of certified organic farmers. And that's important because that's a new trend that's coming in. And a lot of farmers who are really struggling with corn and soybean prices are even starting to look at certified organics because there's a higher price margin that they can get for that. And there's a whole supply chain that goes along with that as well. Some upcoming projects real quick. We're taking a trip down to St. Louis. This is again where we use our economic development professionals. So we will invite the staffs from Pekin and Morton and East Peoria and Washington. Those are the 4 bigger Tazewell County communities that have economic development professionals. And we go down and we try to meet with site selectors, we meet with businesses. On that trip, we're also taking a tour of a couple of innovation centers where they have some startup activity going on. The Career Spark, and I've spoken to you about Career Spark before, is our 2-day career exploration opportunity for every 8th grader in the region. As of when I asked for this data, which was I think on Monday, 1,218 Tazewell County 8th graders are registered to attend the Career Spark, which is happening on October 8th and 9th. And this is a really amazing hands-on opportunity that we're getting kids in front of careers early on for them to explore. The big table, some of you may have heard about this. This is another great collaboration between the CEO Council, all the chambers of commerce, and especially Pekin's, Washington's, and East Peoria and Morton's, again, working together along with Greater Peoria EDC to have kind of a day-long community conversation about what is great about our region and then what our challenges are. It's on innovation and entrepreneurship, workforce and education, quality of life, and then a section on diversity and inclusion. So we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, but that's a really big part of just trying to get people to start talking again about how great it is, the community, but also work on how can we make it even better. And then finally, I'm getting a chance to go to Japan. I was asked to join the State of Illinois delegation that's going to what's called the Midwest U.S. Japan Association Conference. It's held in Tokyo 1 year and then in a Midwest state the other year. Next year it's in Illinois, it's in Chicago. So it's even more important to go this year to start making relationships because in dealing with Asian cultures and Asian businesses, it's all about repetitive contact. So I'm getting a chance to go to this conference and represent the entire region to businessmen in Japan. And then finally, I'll just mention one of the core efforts of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council is our comprehensive economic development strategy. We do this every 4 or 5 years. So this next one will cover 2020 to 2024. And so on the left side is kind of the schedule we have staked out for the document itself, the strategy itself. We're kind of taking an inside out. Last time we did this, if you remember some of the Focus Forward, Central Illinois stuff, it was more outside in where they started with a lot of public input and then refined it. Here we're starting with a more internal strategy where we're working with our communities through our technical working group to start to identify some of the strengths and weaknesses based on some of the work that was done, and then have an opportunity for the public to weigh in. So I'll be back here at some point to talk to you about this particular issue. And so you can kind of see our goal is to have this adopted in the early spring of 2020. On the other side is our call for projects, and one of the features of the SEDS is having a list of projects, capital infrastructure projects that we think will help advance the strategies. So, and that makes them qualified for this EDA funding. So that's one of the ways that we were able to get this money from EDA for ICC's Workforce Sustainability Center. So we'll be sending out, this is how Wagon Cellar Road in Tazewell County was done years ago with EPA funding. So it's a really great opportunity. So we help to manage that. So you'll be getting, your Public Works Department and Ms. Farrell will be getting that information about what projects you might want to apply for. Or what you do is you get on a list, and then the list is included within the document. And then there's a process for actually applying, and that's what we can help with. So I don't know if that was 10 minutes, it was pretty close, I think. So I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any. I thank you for the investment of Tazewell County. I have gotten to know a lot of you and a lot of your communities a lot better than my years in the city of Peoria. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent you to the rest of the nation. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Russ?
You don't have a question, Chris, I got a comment. Most of the board doesn't know, but I served as chairman of the Economic Development District for the region, and I also served as chairman of the River Valley Development Authority that you represented the city of Peoria on. And I had no concerns over the years with the old DDC. I felt that they weren't transparent, and I felt that they weren't inclusive. And I've watched you and Mike Hendrickson, your chairman, for the last couple of years, and you guys have done an outstanding job of especially fixing both those things. This report shows time after time, event after event, where you're reaching out and listening to the citizens and economic development folks to get ideas to do it better. And then you're very transparent about sharing that information. So my hat's off to you. Congratulations. Keep it up. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Chris, thanks for coming out tonight. It's always very informative. All right, now to communications from members of the public or the county employees. Yes. If you could come up here and if you could just introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
okay. Is this good? Sure.
Okay. Well, my name's Austin Witham. I work with a company called Marco Technologies. I first off want to thank you for the opportunity to come up here and touch on a few things. Specifically wanted to address the agenda item, which is the copier RFP and the resolution to award that bid. Wanted to touch on a few concerns that the property committee had specifically with relation to Marco. So with that being said, I'll go right into the first one, which was our pricing. One of the concerns was how did Marco come up with a pricing package that was so far below some of our competition. Marco has been business partners with Sharp for since 1975. One of the things that Marco and Sharp do together are put together targeted packages for what we deem as growth markets, Central Illinois being one of those. As part of that, with our pricing package, a rebate was applied to the pricing overall, to contract pricing to begin with, which led ultimately to a pricing package roughly $90,000 over the life of the contract, less than the NCI Business Systems recommendation today. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was our local presence. That was another concern to the property committee. Marco has had a presence in the greater Peoria area for over 20 years through product of acquisition. We bought a company called American Business Machines, as well as Illinois Valley Business Equipment. We have been Marco in the greater Peoria area for roughly 5 years. The Peoria office specifically over the last 2.5 years has grown from 1 employee, myself, to today we are more than 10 employees, depending on what our technician coverage looks like down here. We could be as many as 12 to 14. Moving on to our technicians specifically and our service philosophy. Our technicians carry $20,000 to $30,000 worth of parts inventory in their van every day, right? Our technicians are not bonused on how many calls they get to in a day, or not bonused on inventory control. They are bonused on first call effectiveness, meaning when they get to the call, they have the parts that are able to fix it on the spot. They are also bonused on time between calls, meaning if there's a part in that machine that's 90% of life, they're going to proactively replace that part as well, so they're not back out here the next week. Our technicians are factory trained at the highest certification. Marco as a whole is in the top 5% in the nation, according to BEI, which is a statistics organization for copier dealerships specifically. And we utilize a GPS routing system to dispatch technicians, so we're not going to send a technician that's in Galesburg if there's one sitting in our Peoria office. Okay. Last, I wanted to touch on Marco as a whole. Marco's been in business since 1973. We were founded in Minnesota. We're roughly $450 million in revenue, with 62 locations throughout 12 states. Over 1,500 employees. We are the largest independent copier dealership in the country. We have never pulled out of a market in our 45-year history, and we do not intend to pull out of Central Illinois. Last, we're much more than a copier company. About half of our revenue comes from copiers and printers, what we're talking about here tonight. The other half comes from our various IT solutions. So if the county is looking for a long-term partner in more than just copiers, Marco is ready and willing to be that partner. My goal tonight is that the agenda item be pulled for further discussion, and I look forward to any questions as the agenda item comes up.
All right. Well, thank you, Austin. All right. Any other comments from members of the public for county employees? Mayor Loft and Mark, you guys want to come up at this time?
Sure.
I think most of you know Mayor Loft, but if you could just introduce yourself and talk about the program here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here to discuss the Illinois Solar for All program and hopefully lend some information and some clarity to how we looked at it and what we chose to do with it. My name is Mark Love, Mayor of Pekin. Sorry about that. But that's what we're here for. Basically, we went through this process, and last July 8th, we put it on the agenda, and it passed with a unanimous vote through the council. The council was very well informed. We had great meetings on this, received a lot of information, weighed the pros and cons, and decided to move forward with this. It was not an easy decision, but again, we were fortunate enough to have good advice, good information, good meetings, and we were also fortunate enough to have a great city manager like we do, Mr. Robert, who I'm going to let explain a little bit more of this to you all to get a better understanding of what the program is and why we did what we did.
Thank you, Mayor and Chairman Zimmerman. Thank you all for having us here tonight to explain this program. I am Mark Rothert, the City Manager for the City of Pekin. The Mayor is correct. On July 8th of this year, we did approve a recommendation to move forward with the Illinois Solar for All program to self-designate one of the census tracts that falls in the City of Pekin as an environmental justice community. But let me take a step back and give you some context and background as to why we did that. As the Mayor said, and as Mr. Setti alluded to, back in 2016, the state of Illinois passed the Illinois 2016 Future Energy Jobs Act, and where communities and businesses could compete for obtaining what are called solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs for short, via a lottery system devised by the Illinois Power Agency. Our goal was to be at the forefront of the solar energy movement and build a 2 megawatt solar array at our Pekin Airport, municipal airport, located south of town near South Pekin. We have about 10 acres out there that is currently being farmed, at least farmed, but we have some other acreage out there that's in front of the airport that we viewed as being very viable for a solar array project. The lottery system was held earlier this year, and as you can imagine, it was very popular, very sought after. There were 980 applicants that applied for these SRECs, and only 30 applicants were successful in the lottery system. You may recall, if you're a landowner, a large landowner, getting calls from different businesses wanting to do options on your property to do a solar project. And that was part of this whole process for the lottery system. We were unsuccessful in getting one of the lottery tickets, the golden ticket, so to speak, to do the project. So we looked at other options and the next rounds of funding. Those next rounds of funding through the Future Energy Jobs Act will come through what the program is going to be titled as the Illinois Solar for All program under that Jobs Act. The Illinois Solar for All program aims to provide the SRECs to eligible entities, whether it be governments or businesses, but it mandates that 25% of those SRECs are allocated to environmental justice communities. So when the city looked at what our prospects are and chances to get funding or get the solar renewable energy credits, we looked at this path as being the best way to do that, since a quarter of them will be going to those environmental justice communities. So we therefore, again, saw it as the most advantageous way for us to complete this project, to complete our goal and mission to be at the forefront of solar energy and creating a project here in Beacon. Generally speaking, environmental justice, if we're unfamiliar with the term, refers to addressing some impacts caused by environmental conditions, and that term environmental can be somewhat of a loaded term. It does not necessarily have to mean environmental contaminants. It could mean disasters that have happened in the past 10 years. And I'll get into some of the categories that would apply to the census tract that we're looking at. But it does address those issues to conditions felt by communities. And so in the funding rounds that are coming up for the Illinois Solar for All program, there are two ways to become an environmental justice community and have that designation. First is to automatically qualify as one of those environmental justice communities based on environmental factors that are impacting the community. The program administrators have set up an automatic screening tool that you can go onto and apply for. Pekin and Tazewell County do not qualify for that automatic, so I just want to make that clear. The second way to do that is to self-designate as an environmental community and to submit data, voluntary data that you collect based in different categories. Some of those categories include, again, proximity to manufacturing or fossil generation plants. So, for example, we have two of those in proximity of the census tract that we're talking about. And we are only talking about one census tract, 218.01, that census tract here in Tazewell County. So it takes into consideration South Pekin and also our airport at the southern end of it and unincorporated Tazewell County as well. So just to give you some reference on what we're looking at. So we are in close proximity to manufacturing in our industrial park in the Riverway Business Park in Pekin. We are in close proximity to fossil generation plants. Other factors that may come into play: economics, business closings within the last 10 years. Again, severe weather events that have created disaster declarations in the last 10 years. The location and proximity of a federal penitentiary, which we have in Pekin as well. Some gas stations that have been abandoned or vacant may have some underground leaking storage tanks that comes into play, which requires some research to do as well. If we're in the vicinity of solid waste facilities, PDC has a facility in this census tract as well. So all those factors could qualify this census tract as being a self-designation for an environmental justice community. Other factors that are not necessarily applicable but would apply would be other historical events such as fires, environmental disasters, poor health as indicated by data from the health department, resource starvation such as a lack of fresh food, elevated lead in drinking waters. Those are different environmental conditions that are not applicable, so we're not going after those. So at the end of the day, after looking at some of the baseline data that the city and our staff had recommended to our city council that we proceed so we can be most competitive in this grant program and to receive funding to do our project. I did talk specifically with the Illinois Solar for All program administrator because I know there's a sensitivity there to say we are an environmental justice community. What does that mean for us? Does that obligate us to anything? They were very clear to us in written email documentation that this is only a self-designation for this program only. It does not go to the EPA, the state EPA, or the federal EPA. It only stays with this program. So there is nothing that is going to put us on the hook, so to speak, to clean up a brownfield site, so as an example. So with that validation from the program administrator themselves that we wouldn't have any financial obligation to this, it was staff's recommendation at the city level to recommend that we approve this self-designation to proceed and pursue the renewable energy credits through this next round of funding. So that's a broad overview. Hopefully that's comprehensive for you all. We're happy to answer any questions.
And that validation was a very important part of the process, obviously, because there were things in there that could be misconstrued or misunderstood. And we understood, as I'm sure you do, with certain terminology in this program that might send up a red flag. But through that confirmation through those emails, we all were reassured that there were specifics to this outside of that allowed us to make a decision to do this and move forward.
I will add, if I may, that requesting this designation from the city as well as from the county, we don't necessarily need both to signify a self-designation. I think one was only required to do so. We wanted to request this, I guess, in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration, so that's why we did so.
So this is going to be an in-place executive meeting, but I'd like to open it up to all board members. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have is, if the grants or the awards don't happen, can the designation be revoked?
Yes, one of the stipulations in our resolution that we passed was that if we did not receive any funding or the renewable energy credits after the rounds of funding have ended, then the self-designation goes away.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, yeah, Mike.
I have a couple questions. When that was presented to us, they said the environmental justice program was to benefit the consensus area that's going to be in, benefit some employees. And then they went on to say that they had 250, for lack of a better word, spots for decrease in their electric bill. But that Peoria County could apply for those 250. So theoretically, the census tract could not get any, and therefore wouldn't meet the requirements of the environmental justice area. Is that correct?
I'm not quite clear on.
Well, let me ask it this way. The environmental justice program, we were told that it's going to benefit the people in the census area. It's one way or another, right?
So the program is set up so that subscribers, once we get the credits, subscribers will subscribe to the program, and if they, the city or other public or nonprofit facilities can also be subscribers as well as homeowners if they're qualified. Those individuals and those entities would be the beneficiaries of the program. Now,
yeah, and there's only 250 of them.
I don't know how many.
That's what we were told.
There could be. In the previous program, if you won in the lottery and you own property here in Tazewell County and you own property in Peoria County, and your Peoria County property didn't win, you could transfer your credit from Tazewell County if you won there and transfer it over to Peoria.
But go back to the original question. Is it supposed to benefit the people in the census group?
Yes.
How is it going to do that?
There will be subscribers to the program. So if you're a subscriber to the program, then yes, you would benefit.
Well, anybody can subscribe from 5-county area, businesses or anything, and there's a limit of 250. So it's a minimal support or help for the community, and that's what I see. Maybe it's different.
I would add that we have Kirsten Sheets here, who is part of our project team to help support us in applying for these. So I guess for her, if she has a greater detail in answering those questions. I don't have all the details. I'm not the technical expert on this as well.
So do we have any more questions for Mayor Luck or Administrator? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. As I understand, there's approximately 257 open spots to be subscribed for any area resident and or municipality. The city of Pekin would be taking up, is this after the city of Pekin takes up what their need is? Because it's on generation of electricity, is what it's based on, correct? Am I saying that correctly? After the city of Pekin gets their generation of electricity, their top of the line up here at this mountaintop, then as we go down, is there 257 subscribers available or will be available to get that benefit? And to subscribe, one would have to do what, and what are the requirements to be eligible?
So the city of Pekin has always envisioned taking a large proportionate share of the benefit, so to speak, for a large consumption user of energy. I think up to 40% is what the max one entity can take. So we've always envisioned it to help reduce our community, our city's energy costs. So whatever the 60% left over is then split amongst other subscribers. Could it be Pekin Housing Authority? Could it be the county? Could it be a nonprofit and citizens? What that number is, how many, I don't have that specifically for you.
Thank you.
Do you have an idea about how much that will help people save? Like, what will be that savings to the subscribers?
I don't have that.
Go ahead, Russ.
I was at the executive committee meeting when your presentation was presented. And it's unfortunate that either one of you or both of you weren't there, because I think the problems I have with the process wouldn't have happened if either one of you had been there, because I know you both, I've worked with you both, and you're outstanding professionals. I'm going to go through so you have knowledge of what happened in that meeting. The comment was made by the presenter. I don't know what percent of the people are living in the census tract are included in poverty definition of the 250 households that reside there. 250 households in this big pink area. Later they said they meant only 250 households could subscribe, which is very different than 250 households live there. The presentation said that South Pekin was not in the census tract, even though it's right in the middle of this pink area. And then they said they didn't think it was in the census tract. I took copious notes, despite the pink census area showing the entire South Pekin included. So either it is, and the map's correct, or it's not, and the map's incorrect. Nick here asked where is Pekin supportive of this, which again is another reason why I wished you would have been there. Finally, I could go on. I was frustrated the entire thing. I'm on the committee, so I couldn't really say anything. That added to my frustration. But they said finally, in summary, that the application's due this Friday and will go ahead without Tazewell County support. Now, I've been a board member since 1976. I've never had any group or any person asked to come to a committee or the board, asked to be on the agenda, and then insult us by telling us that this is going to happen whether you agree with us or not. I mean, maybe that was true, but nobody ever said that. And so I was outraged. And I just want Mark and Mark to realize that and know that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so this will be part of our executive committee coming up here real quick. So I tell you what, it is a privilege to work with Mayor Luft and Mark Rother, and I appreciate you guys coming out here and talking tonight, and we'll make our decision here shortly, okay? Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right, any other comments from elected or appointed county officials?
I need to do a quick update on...
Can you come up and use the microphone, please?
I want to give a quick update on our Abella MIP system. I know I didn't get a chance to do it during finance. We are moving along. We've had another conference call with Zobrio, and Craig and I have started working on how we're going to set up our chart of accounts. And so at this point, the next step is going out to each one of the elected officials' offices and our appointed offices just to see the detail they want to see. And then we'll have that chart of accounts. So we're working on that right now. We're a little bit slow. Craig's doing much better now. We had to take a little hiatus because of his medical issue and with the budget, but we're hoping to have another conference call on the 13th with Zobrio, and we should be on track. So the hardest part about doing a conversion like this is the chart of accounts, and we just want so much, I want so much detail, and I think a lot of you want detail. So our chart of accounts is the biggest and the hardest hurdle in this. So if you have any questions, give me a call, talk to me, send me an email. But I'll have another update for you at the next board meeting, okay?
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the public? All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the July 31st board meeting? Motion by Mitten, second by Jostings. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We do have one in-place executive committee meeting tonight. Sue, if you could call the roll, please.
Chairman Zimmerman.
Here.
Newhouser.
Here.
Bonnet. Here. Darcy. Here. Graff.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Emick.
Here.
Josie.
Here.
Mennel.
Here.
Frail. Sin.
Here.
Sundell. Patty. Forum.
All right. For at least discussion purposes, can I get a motion to get E19-117 on the floor? Motion by Darcy, second by Graff. So we just had Mayor Luft and Administrator Rother give an overview. I know that I wasn't there, but it was talked about extensively in executive committee. Any questions? Tim?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one question that did come up at the meeting, and I just want to ask it for the benefit of everybody here, and then we can get a clarified answer. But one of the concerns expressed by a number of committee members was, if the designation is granted, then what does that do negatively? Does it negatively impact a property owner that would live in that area from their property perspective? So, for example, if it's granted, and then 2 years down the road, I live in that tract, and I go to sell my house, and the new homeowner finds out that it has this environmental justice community impact designation, what does that mean? And I think we were told that it didn't have a negative effect, but I just want everybody to hear the answer. If somebody can clarify whether that's in fact true, not true, does it even matter?
Somebody want to address that, or?
I would be glad to address that
If
you want me to.
you can, I need you to come up and say your name and answer it. So Tim, your question is, if we designate this area and say 2 years down the road, whether we get the solar farm or not, this designation.
Yeah, are we doing anything in this decision to negatively impact a property owner that would want to sell their home, their property, whatever it may be. We want to avoid any negative impacts. I think is our goal, but we want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
The environmental justice
If
designation.
you could state your name first, and who you're with, that's okay.
Kirsten Sheets, I'm with Rural Mechanical Services. We're out of Peoria. We would be potentially an installer on this project. So the designation is for the Illinois Solar for All program only. It does not get distributed amongst realtors or tax assessors or any of those other entities that would negatively impact the financial aspects of a property. So there would not be a negative impact.
Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I can support this resolution, I would like to see it amended to reflect the same language that the City of Pekin included in their resolution, stating something to the effect that if this award is not received, this designation goes away. I don't know how to wordsmith that appropriately, but I sure would like to see that language before I'd even consider passing this.
Are you making that in the form of an amendment?
I would make that amendment. I'm not sure how to word it.
Using the language of the City of Pekin?
That would be.
Is there a second, Mindy? Is there a second to that? Second by Kim Jostings? So to the amendment, Greg?
This whole thing, it seems like we're kind of making something that isn't something, because if it doesn't pass, it's nothing. So that's what this amendment is to take away what we did. Is it a blighted area, or isn't it? Does it need economic help, or doesn't it? I question that the 250 assistance might be something, but I look at this as creating, being a job maker. It might add to property tax value with the solar farm, and I think the electricity might be enough, but it's not generating that many jobs other than maybe the people putting it in and stuff. So by saying it is and then it isn't, makes this a very weak topic to me as far as designating an area like that. And as far as this is a public meeting, everybody knows if we pass this, you're in a blighted area. I mean, it's maps here, our assessors are all here, everybody's here. And this is a public meeting, so everybody knows. So it's not that it's a secret now.
Right. So we do have an amendment on the floor, so our questions need to be towards the amendment, and then we can come back to that. So Monica or Mindy, were your questions? Okay, Russ, towards the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Nick was struggling for language, and I would have been too, but Pekin helped me out. And so, if the maker of the motion and the second would, this says, such self-designation as an environmental justice community shall only be valid as it relates to the application to the Illinois Solar for All program for incentive funding, and shall sunset and cease to be applicable after the 2020 Illinois Solar for All procurement window concludes. If the maker and the second don't mind, that's the language that I'd like, and that is the language from Pekin.
Okay. Nick agrees to that. Any other questions regarding the amendment? And this is just the executive committee voting on this. So all those in favor of this amendment to the resolution signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
So noted. So the amendment passes. So now we're back to the resolution as amended. I think Monica and then Mindy.
Thank you, Chairman. Is this designation somewhere else in the area or in the state that you're aware of?
Yes, this is the second round of funding in the Illinois Solar for All program. We missed the deadline for the first. In the first round, Rock Island, self-designated. Yes.
And that's it?
That was the only change to the map that I myself, when I looked at the website, saw, was Rock Island.
Okay, then I guess this would be to our state's attorney. If we had done this and designated this, Would this be a FOIA, under a FOIA request?
You want to be subject?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility of someone misconstruing, is what I'm afraid of too.
Okay. My question is, has anyone talked to the residents in this area? Are they aware of this potential designation? Do they have any concerns? I mean, it is their property, it is their home. I just am curious what they think about that. Has anyone talked to them?
Right here.
What do you think?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that we should
Yeah.
hash that.
And if I may.
Please.
There are more than 250 households in this census tract. We have, as I look at this, you have South Pekin, you have Sky Air subdivision, there is the Midway area, Garmin area. They left out, you've got the North and South Midway area. You have they're off of 14th Street, part of Sunset Hills, the other section of it. Then you go on down and you look at Deerfield Estates, which is a fairly new subdivision, and it's pretty full, and they're adding up every day. So this is not really, some of the area you could say is blighted, but there's some of it that is not. I live in a new area, they're all new homes. There's, the fourth one is being built as we speak. So I mean, it's, yeah, I don't live that far away from there, so. And with all the pros and cons that I see, I'm kind of thinking I'm not in favor of this, but I'm not seeing where it's going to benefit the citizens that much.
May I make a clarifying?
Sure.
Okay. So the representation of 250 homes. Actually, no, let me start with the census tract. The census tract is the census tract as identified by the Illinois Solar for All program. It is not a census tract that can be redefined by us or by Tazewell County or by the city of Pekin. We chose that census tract because the project has always been located at the Pekin Airport. And that's it. That's the only reason that this is the census tract. And the borders of that census tract cannot be redefined. It just is what it is as defined by the Illinois Solar for All program. As far as the 250 homes, so the amount of subscriptions to a community solar project are limited by the amount of electricity produced by that community solar project. This is a 1.8 megawatt project, which would supply enough electricity for approximately 250 homes. That does not include that what we would intentionally have the city of Pekin subscribe to, which is 40%. You and I have talked about Cincinnati Township, the firehouse, and those entities being able to. So those are all entities that are open for subscription. The subscriptions are limited to the amount of electricity made by the solar array, and that is not something that can be changed either, just as the census tract can't be changed. It just is what it is. And then the third thing that I would like to possibly clarify is that the Illinois Solar for All program requires that of those subscribers, they save 50% on the cost of the supply of their electricity. So if your electric bill is $100 and $50 of it is for delivery and $50 of it is for supply, it would be our responsibility to make sure you saved half of that $50 on your supply, so you would get $25. That's required by the Illinois Solar for All program. So that is the financial benefit to a subscriber.
Mindy, were you done with your questions? Okay.
Okay, so I know Monica is aware, but what about other residents?
No, we did not make an outreach to residents in the census tract.
Yeah.
My question is for Mr. Holly. The city of Pekin has already designated this tract with this designation. They did that when they met in June or July. My question is, what action taken by the city of Pekin has an effect outside of the city of Pekin? In other words, are we arguing about something that's already been done is my question.
To be honest with you, I don't have a great familiarity with this program. Unfortunately, I did not privy to all the details of it. I'd have to take a deeper look at it to really give you an accurate answer on that.
Any other questions? Thanks, Kristen. Okay, so we're going to vote in executive committee on whether to accept this resolution or this designation or not. And I'll try a voice vote first. We'll see how that goes. So if you vote yes, you're saying that this is an environmental justice area. If you vote no, the motion will go down. So all those in favor of this motion signify by aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, or all those opposed? Aye. Okay. Motion fails. We are recessed from executive committee. All right, so that brings us down to the consent agenda. Items 7, 8, 11, and 12. 12 is not on the agenda now. 7, 8, and 11 are automatically pulled. Anything else, Mike? 3, 3? Anything else? Can I get a motion for the remainder? Motion by Wolf, second by Graff. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Down to appointments, A through B. Can I get a motion? Motion by Conant, second by Shortino. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Appointments passed. Back to our agenda. Can I get a motion for item P19-3? That's motion, item 3. Motion by Shortino. We have a second by Newhouser. Mike, you pulled this?
Yes, I did. I'd like to have a little discussion on this. Tim, you were the main thrust on this. It looks like the presentation we heard a while ago that we're losing $18,000 a year if we go with copies of a vendor that we chose in part of the committee. So I'd like to reopen this and just have a little discussion before we continue on. Tim, you have any comments on this?
You want me to make the same comments that I did at committee meeting?
Sure.
Okay. So this was, Craig Peters did a great job putting an RFP together because this is a really complicated issue whenever you deal with technology. But we had a number of respondents that came to the pre-bid meeting to ask questions, to get clarifications, and we received the bids back that you see in your packet. As stated earlier, Marco Technologies was the low bid, and they were significantly lower than everyone else, which is an immediate cause for question. So I did a little asking around to some other business owners in the area that I deal with. Nobody had really ever heard of them. They're a newer company in the area. So I looked up on the website as to where their local office was at, which is down in Eastport, by Eastport Marina. There's a little shopping center there. Went to lunch one day down at the galley, so I stopped in to check it out, knock on the door, and see who was there. And the lights were off, and the door said by appointment only. So that was a red flag to me, which was where are they at? How do we get a hold of them? If we have an issue with one of our copiers, what's going to happen? So that was a concern for me, and I lodged that concern at committee that we just didn't have a lot of information. They did provide a couple of references or referrals. One of them was from Agland FS, which is a local company here in Tazewell County. The other one was, I believe it was Carl Sandburg College. But I was a little bit concerned with the lack of referrals in Tazewell County, specifically companies that we may know. So we brought that up as a concern. Not only are they, since they're new to the area, do they really know the market? Are they pricing things accordingly? When we've got 4 other copier companies that are in our local facility, our local area, that we do at least know of, that are all priced within literally dollars of each other. So the conversation went then to Digital Copy Systems, which was the second lowest bid, and we've just been having issues with them from a service perspective. They actually came to us a few months ago wanting us to just renew our current contract with them for around $4,400 a month, and our overages were going to be left the same. They weren't going to reduce those. But then they came in with this bid, and they were about $1,000 a month cheaper, and their overage amounts were half of what they were going to have us sign 30 to 60 days prior to that. So I personally have a problem with that philosophy and that integrity with regards to a month ago you were going to have us pay $1,000 more for a 5-year contract on older machines, and now you're walking in with brand new machines allegedly, and you're one of the low bids. So then the conversation went to who were the 2 next qualified bidders, which were NCI Business Systems and RK Dixon. RK Dixon is, even though they're located in Peoria, they're not a local company. They're actually owned by Xerox out of Florida. So then we got into discussion of what the next comfortable decision we would be making, who we trust, who could service us to the level that we felt. I also asked the question, we had 52 plus machines in our county, and I asked the people involved who came to the pre-bid meeting, which was everybody, but there was only one vendor that took the time to walk around to every building in our county, meet with all our elected officials and our appointed officials to talk about what their needs were in the machines that they had in their department, especially Gail in our print shop, which has the biggest, the best, the fastest machine that we deal with, down to a simple copier, and that was one company, and that was NCI Business Systems. So just from a familiarity perspective, a locally owned company, locally operated, that was the recommendation that the property committee made. It's not the low bid, but we are agreeing to a 5-year deal, and to be honest with you, it's really a 10-year deal, because at the end of 5 years, hopefully we own these machines, which we didn't in our prior agreement, which I think was misrepresented, but that's another story. But after 5 years, we're still going to need somebody to service these products for us, and I think that that was the best recommendation.
Thanks, Tim. I couldn't remember all that if I even tried. And that, I wanted the whole board to hear we're spending extra dollars, and I'd like the whole board to know why.
Nick?
Just one other thing to add what Mr. Newhouser said, that business is located in Tazewell County.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Down to HR 1923, number 7. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Atkins, second by Wolf. This just automatically pulls the replacement hire. So, any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the same for HR 1924, item 8. Can I get a motion? Motion by Connett, second by Minton. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And then finally, E19-116, item 11. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Darcy, second by Atkins. We actually need an amendment on this. One of the purchasers of a tax deed pulled out, and so we just need, is this at everybody's station, Sue?
Only at yours and one for the county.
Okay. So we just had one purchaser who backed out of the deal, and he did, so we're good there. Do I have a motion?
Yeah. Motion second to modify.
Okay. So for the amendment, Newhouser and Crawford, For the amendments, it just to change the totals, it's a change of insignificant amount. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the amendment passes. Now we're back to the motion as amended. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Any new business before the committee, or the board, excuse me? The bills are in our packet. And then finally, approval of the corrected calendar. We had some changes on the finance day. I think they're each one of your positions. Can I get a motion to approve the calendar? Motion by Minton, second by Longfellow. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Thanks, everyone. We are adjourned. Appreciate it.